Hey, folks, welcome to the Knock&Talk show. I am your host, Patrick Faulkner, and this is episode number 16. Today's guest is none other than retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel Otis McGregor. We're going to be discussing Alaska cold, rugby, and Otis is going to be dropping some business knowledge bombs for us. So you aren't going to want to miss that. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
The Knock&Talk Show is a certified veteran-hosted podcast. Show your support. Tune in, share, and subscribe.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Knock&Talk show. This is episode number 16. Today's guest is Lieutenant Colonel Otis McGregor. He joins us from,
Colorado.
Colorado. That's correct. All right, thank you for fixing that up. Brain fart, completely forgot. Lieutenant Colonel, welcome to the show, and been looking forward to having this episode, this interview, and. Why don't you take just a couple of minutes and introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, Patrick, man, I appreciate it. And always great to be able to share a little bit of the story and, just help other folks. The way I like to look at it is don't take the path that I took, I spent 25 years in the Army. I started off as a tank driver. Driving a tank that was 5 years older than me. I still look back on it. Yeah, you remember the M60A3? Yeah, mine was just an M60. So I was, I was in the Texas Army National Guard, the Lone Star Division. I had a great time, great experience. Cav Scout, got commissioned out of Texas A&M, Corps of Cadets, all those fun times, crazy things that happened there. As an engineer,
okay,
because the Army knew better than I did, apparently. But then I showed the Army a thing or two, and I volunteered for Special Forces and spent the rest of my career as a Green Beret. And that's what I retired as about 12 years ago now, and then went into the business world and wandered the job desert, is how I like to put it, for about 7 years or so, because I had no guide other than I needed a job or wanted a job. I didn't really need one. I wanted one. And so I just took jobs, and every job I took with the attitude, this is what I'm going to do till I retire. And every single one of them at about the 90-day mark, about that time, where your office is or the combination to the door, you figured things out. And then that was about the time I went, oh, this sucks. And it was about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, because it was summertime. So 4.5 years ago, sitting here in my home office, feeling sorry for myself. I had a great job. I mean, I was chief strategy officer for a small business based in Fort Worth, where I grew up. The founder / owner, good friend of mine. He had to be a good friend of mine because the patience he had with me working for him. But in case you didn't know, chief strategy officer, nobody knows what the hell a chief strategy officer does. So guess what I got to do? Whatever I wanted to do.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, carte blanche, truthfully. And I was miserable.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty messed up, ain't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I could travel when and where I wanted to, meet with whoever I wanted to, because I was doing business strategy.
Yes.
5-year plan, 10-year plan, right? I was frustrated and miserable. And that summer, sitting here in my office, feeling sorry for myself, I started to reflect back on life since leaving the Army. And I realized that in those 6-7 years, I'd only had two things that had been consistent in my life: my family and rugby. Shortly after I retired, I started coaching boys high school rugby. And I was like, why does that come to be? Why was that the one other consistency in my life? Because even reflecting back, I realized that over those years, I used to tell people on the rugby pitch and parents that the only reason I'm working is so I could coach. And that summer afternoon, the light came on and I realized that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be a coach. I'm supposed to be helping people do more than they think they can, have more success than they think they deserve, hold them accountable for doing what they say they're going to do, and challenging them to take on more. And that's when I shifted my then consulting business, because I did a lot of, in between, bouncing between all those companies I worked for, I also consulted, just to show you how messed up I really was. Consulted doing the thing I didn't like doing.
Okay.
Yeah, had some real problems. You could probably call that some mental issues, I guess. But when I realized that, I shifted my life, shifted my business to helping people achieve more. And then lately, about a year plus ago, we shifted it and focused it even more to helping people understand what their purpose is, so they can live life intentionally to fulfill their purpose, and then build a tribe around it so you can have more success and fulfillment in life. And it's been a fun ride. It's just going to get more fun, and I enjoy it every month, every minute of it. Even the frustrating things ain't that bad,
Right.
So it's been a great ride, man.
Awesome. So military, private business, and then some coaching, and now all coaching.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you'd like to jump in the Wayback Machine, as I like to call it, and head back to basic, because you started off enlisted,
Yep.
and then you got commissioned later in your career. What was the difference between like basic and OTS or OCS?
Well, I didn't do OCS. It was ROTC through
Okay.
AMU. But, the difference was, honestly, when I went to basic training, I just finished my freshman year at A&M as a fish in the Corps. Basic training was easy. After being a year of just getting wallered, push-ups, crap out runs, you name it, just now almost zero privileges. And then going to basic training, that was easy. This is a walk in the park. Your drill sergeant's going to yell at me and tell me to do push-ups. Oh, okay. But I do have to say that my basic training was at Fort Knox, Kentucky. We did back in the one station unit training day. I don't know if they still do that or not. But I was in the same barracks that they filmed Stripes in.
No kidding.
The obstacle course that you see John Candy running, and he slips on that log, and yeah,
that's a great movie.
I ran across that very same log because that movie was out probably within just a couple of years of when I went through basic training. So it was still just, we were all very fresh and going, wow, look at that. I'm right here where Hollywood was. So
that's
yeah,
cool. That's
yeah.
nice. Yeah. Well, I mentioned before we hit the record button that my son recently graduated basic training, and I just dropped him off at Fort Gordon for his AIT. And I was in the Air Force back in the 90s, and believe it or not, my son was allowed to have his cell phone on Sundays for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
Where he could call family. Where when I went to, we had the payphone. We all had to stand in line and wait for the payphone, and it was 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What do you recall about your time in basic, and maybe the funniest thing that happened while you were there?
Drill Sergeant Gates.
So you remember his name?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Never. And I just, every time I get on a podcast or some public thing, and this comes up, I always throw out there, hey, Drill Sergeant Gates, look where I'm at now. You were part of this. You were part of this getting me here, and I appreciate every little thing that you did. And the thing about Drill Sergeant Gates was Drill Sergeant Gates was a Georgia boy. And I'll always remember his thing when we screwed up, he'd put us against the wall there in the barracks. And we knew that we were going to get a lecture because Drill Sergeant Gates we'd all be standing there at attention, and he'd go, Menzies, and he'd fold his arms, and he'd take his left hand and he'd push his round brown back up on his head. And we knew we were going to get a good life lesson at that point, something about girls, staying in the barracks, keeping it clean, living life, whatever it was. But that was the way he would always start it off. He would fold those arms crossed over like that, take that one finger on his left hand, push the round brown back on his head and say, Menzies, I'm going to tell you how this is going to be. And I remember one guy that was in my platoon, not in my squad, older guy. I think he was he must have gotten a waiver for age. I think he was 30, 31, something like that. Drill Sergeant Gates made him cry. It was something to do with the way he had his drawers laid out, with the clothes folder or something like that. And Drill Sergeant Gates just took that and just threw it across the room. And
nice.
He just stood there and cried. Yeah. And we, speaking of the guys in the platoon, I remember another guy that I don't remember anybody's names other than the drill sergeant's names now. But another guy I remember was there because the judge told him, you can join the Army or you can go to jail. And he said, yes, sir, I'm joining the Army.
And how did he do?
He did good. He was a good troop. He'd learned his life lesson. I remember some vagueness about a girlfriend, very serious girlfriend that he was straightening his life up to go take care of her and things like that. So yeah, he did really well. Turned into a good soldier from what I saw through basic.
Oh, that's good. Did you have anybody not make it through? Not just recycled back to a different phase, but just not make it through basic? Not
that I can remember. That was a long time.
Yeah. I had one.
Yeah.
In Air Force basic training. I mean, it was so rough, not being able to get cheese in our eggs. He just couldn't take it, and he tried to hang himself.
Oh God!
Poorly. It was a cry for help. He was using his shoelaces off the top of the wall locker, and it wasn't high enough, and I mean, it was just a cry for help. But
I was going to say, please tell me the wall locker fell over on top of him.
No, because when he jumped off the bunk, there was so much cord left.
Oh,
it didn't do anything. But somebody saw it, and off he went to the padded room for a little while. But I always found my basic training was super easy. My grandfather, uncle, and my dad were both military, and they gave me all the worst case scenario stories and made it up to be the most miserable thing I would ever experience, and it was a cakewalk. So yeah. I can't imagine what was so bad he didn't like it or couldn't stand it. But I always found it interesting that sometimes in the other branches there was that one person or a group of people that didn't make it. So.
I remember like the first 2 weeks. So when I said we were in the same barracks that they were in Stripes, those World War II barracks, that's where we spent that was our reception station, if I remember how they labeled it. And there was a couple of guys that couldn't pass the PT test to go to the barracks to start basic training.
Okay.
And yeah, so I remember that, but because the barracks were Disney barracks, so it was called Disneyland.
And I'm sure far from anything resembling Disney.
Yeah, except for the red bricks. That's about it.
um, Hitting the fast forward button, you
Yeah.
served in quite a few different areas across the entire globe. And here in my show notes, I see that you were in Alaska.
Mhm.
What was that like?
Cold, cold and dark. I mean, man, what an experience. From the things I got to do with the guys in my platoon. Uh, we were so when I was a platoon leader, I was the assault and bearer platoon leader. And this is back in the light infantry days when they first stood up light infantry. So my platoon had the only engineering equipment that was organic to the division. And we would go out for exercises. It was just really one of those interesting things. So the exercise itself would be, let's say, 5 days, 6 days, maybe 8 days, right? I don't remember. I remember it being about a weekish, right? But what would happen, because we're dealing in an Arctic environment, you don't want to kill people, in training, right?
Right.
So what would happen is the logistics people would set up a week before that. And then a week before that, the engineers would go out and clear the snow off the roads, clear the tent pads and the headquarter pads and things like that. So, and then it would work the same way going back home.
Okay.
So a 1 week exercise where the brigade would go out for 1 week and do their FTX and, the blank fire and miles gear and all that sort of stuff would be a month exercise for us in the Arctic. So we would be out, living in the Arctic environment like that, and it was unbelievable. When we were there for 4 years, and I think it was each year we broke some sort of winter record. Like 1 year it was consecutive days below 40. Another year it was like number of days in the winter cycle below 70. Sorry, and that was 40 below. And then another year, yeah, and then another year was like record snowfall. So I mean, it was just like, wow, Alaska's great. But it was just unbelievable. Hunting and fishing up there. To take a leap out of the Army side. My hunting buddy and I, who happened to be my company commander too. We went out on a Dall sheep hunt. That's the white rams, beautiful animal. And when you stepped off that highway, you were into the food chain. I mean, come back to the camp and there's big grizzly paw prints around your tent. And
Wow.
yeah. And never saw another living soul or even a track. We were the only two out there. And, if something had happened, there weren't no cell phones, let alone, even if there were cell phones, probably still isn't in that area,
Yeah.
connectivity. So yeah, it was, just an unbelievable experience to think when you could do that, like literally just step off the grid and be, I mean, there's no other way. I can't think of another way of describing it, to be part of the food chain,
That sounds pretty accurate.
yeah, yeah, unbelievable experience.
That would be amazing. So I would love to visit Alaska and be part of that last frontier.
Yeah.
Is Alaska. I used to think that 33 degrees and above was chilly, and 32 degrees and below was freezing. And that was the line. It was either freezing or it was chilly.
Mm.
And then one winter, a couple of years back, I drove from Atlanta on a Sunday. It was 64 degrees. And I got into Wisconsin, and the thermometer on my truck said -11. That was a whole new cold for me. -11 degrees. That wasn't the wind chill. That was, the temperature.
Yeah.
I can't fathom -40, much less -70.
It's an interesting thing. My wife always talks. She was a volunteer youth director for the Post Church, right, chapel,
Okay.
and she always talks about her kids. Because we'd spend 2 or 3 weeks at -40. Your body tends to adjust to it, and the temperature would get up to like 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and she'd be driving to work and see the kids standing at the bus stop in shorts. You know, because that's I mean, think about it. You do the math, it's still a 45, 50 degree temperature swing. That's you know, but yeah, it's still 5 degrees, kids. Put some pants on.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, your blood is only able to thicken so much, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, let's go to the opposite end of the climate spectrum.
Mm,
You spent some time over in the sandbox.
yeah.
What was that like?
Somebody told me before I went, because I asked that question, and they said, put your oven on 400 degrees, open the door and stick your head in. That's what it feels like. And they are 100% right.
Mhm.
Man, those days in Baghdad and Balad, middle of the afternoon in the summertime, you know, you step outside and it's 130 degrees, and golly, it's just, it's, you know, what's interesting is, you know, when you step out in that extreme cold, it takes your breath away. You step out in that extreme hot, does the same thing.
It
Takes
does.
your breath away. And it's just this weird sort of feeling. And it's just, yeah, unbelievable heat. And that's, you know, shade, all those sort of things. You know, I grew up in Texas and it gets hot, you know, 100, 105. I remember as a kid, you know, frying eggs on the street and things like that. But man, it wasn't nothing like it was in Iraq, because it just sucked the water out of you too. I mean, it was like instant dehydration.
Right. Yeah, I remember my only correlation with your -70 or -40 up to 5 degrees was the opposite when I was in both Jordan and Bahrain,
Mm,
where it was 130 during the day in the shade, and then at night it would drop to 80,
yeah,
and I'd be wearing sweatpants and a
yeah.
sweatshirt because I was cold. So I can see the shorts maybe, but 5 degrees is still 5 degrees.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, desert phase of Ranger School, we were at Dugway Proving Ground. Uh, it was the same sort of thing, man. You'd be out there and it's 100 plus degrees, and at night it drops to, you know, 70, 65 degrees, and you know, you got your poncho liner wrapped around you. You're spooning with your foxhole buddy because it's cold. I mean, yeah. Well, plus you didn't have any body fat by desert
Yeah.
phase, but you know, that those you know, when you do the math, the delta is still the delta, right? I mean,
Yes,
you're
it is.
still changing the temperature 50 degrees. So
I remember taking the MREs. Now I was eating 80s era MREs in the 90s, but taking that and just putting it on the hood of our truck when we got to work about 6 in the morning, and by lunchtime, I mean, it was boiling inside the bag, and I mean, it made the best spaghetti for MRE spaghetti anyway.
well, you know, if you're able to heat those up, it's amazing how much different they taste. And
Yes, except for the ham slice. I was never a fan of the ham slice. That
no,
was
I don't think you couldn't do much with it. It was
no,
just,
throw it away or
yeah,
trade it and a pack of cigarettes for the chicken a la king or the spaghetti.
yeah, yeah. The spaghetti was heartburn central, though. I remember
It
that.
you know, it didn't bother me then. It probably would now. You know, getting old sucks, but
Well, not that the coffee in, you know, Copenhagen had anything to do with me getting
nothing,
heartburn.
nothing. No,
Yeah, it was all the spaghetti's fault.
indeed. Yeah. So, um, anything interesting happened while you were over in the sandbox?
Uh, you know, not a whole lot. I was, so when I finally, you know, which is ironic to think about it, but it was just one of those things that the jobs I was in, uh, I was too critical to go into the war zone for things that were happening back here. Uh, yeah, I was just a staff pogue. Uh, we did some really interesting things. I did some work with Stan McChrystal and that team. You read his book, Team of Teams. based on what we were doing, I was executing team of teams. We were forming that, putting that together when I was there. So not that Major General McChrystal was coming down and saying, "Hey, Otis, what do you think?" I was on the end of the spear, or the end of the whip, I guess is better way, because end of the spear meant I was actually doing something. I wasn't doing anything. I was doing staff stuff, which is important, but it ain't sexy.
Sure. I mean, somebody's got to do it, but you're not down range.
Oh yeah. So that was, went out a couple of times with some fellas and rode around. Kind of told the team sergeant, just tell me which direction to point and tell me whether or not to pull the trigger. Because I was a staff guy. I knew my place. Yeah. So, nothing really cool in Iraq. I will say Afghanistan was a little bit different.
How so?
Well, I was still a staff guy, but I was we were NATO Special Ops, and it was brand new organization / command, and standing up and kind of making our way in the world, if you will, bringing together. And one of the things that we were doing was uniting the tribe, is the way we like to refer to it, because at the point when we came in, we had Black Soft, we had White Soft, we had NATO Soft. And NATO Soft was fractured into, it wasn't even unified. It was just independent nations that were NATO nations. They happened to be there: Poland, Spain, France, England, or the UK, I guess. England, thinking rugby, but UK. They were all doing their own thing, and our job was to pull them all together to do a unified effort. And I was my boss at the time was Admiral McRaven, and we had he and our group, our small part of our staff, and some ministers of defense and chiefs of staff from other NATO nations were there doing a survey, if you will. And the day before we're supposed to leave, the Admiral leans over to me and says, "Hey, Otis, you're staying behind." "Roger that, sir." And says, your job is to fix this." "Roger that, sir." And the next day, everybody loads up on the plane, and I'm standing there at the bottom of and this was the Yukon Commander's airplane. So think rock star flying. I mean, dude, I'll never, if I do, it'd be really, really cool. I'll never fly in anything like that ever again. But it is what was it, a 727 or something like that basically sat 10 or 12 people.
Wow.
Yeah. Had special quarters for the commander, and then staff. I mean, think Air Force One, but not quite as nice. You've seen the pictures. It was like that. I mean, it was like, whoa, dude. So I'm standing there at the bottom of the stairwell. Admiral's the last one to get on, and he says, "What's our language requirement here?" Because I can bleep myself out, or
let it fly.
Okay, all right, just double checking, because I couldn't remember. He says, "Otis, don't fuck it up, and call me if you need anything." I saluted him, said, "Yes, sir." He turned, walked up the stairs, closed the door, plane took off, and I'm standing there all alone and unafraid.
Alone and unafraid.
Yeah, that was me. So that was amazing. Not a true singleton mission, sexy singleton, Jason Bourne sort of thing, but It still was. It was like, go fix this. Roger that.
Did you fix it?
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Big win. Yeah. We were at that point, we were the NATO Special Operations Coordination Center. Okay. Now they are the NATO Special Operations Headquarters. So they actually have a command and control authorization or responsibility now. So, yeah, I guess you could say maybe I did.
Maybe you did.
That's right. I didn't fuck it up. I can tell you that.
Well, all right, there's the success within the success, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I also, because I use that as an example of guidance when I'm talking about leadership and trust. And one of the things that he told me those two things: don't fuck it up and call me if you need help. And I did. I called him. Say, hey, boss, here's what's going on. Blah blah, this and this, and wondering if you could speak to Colonel so and so or Major so and so, or actually not Major, but General so and so, and just kind of smooth the Roger that, Otis, no problem. It was that kind of a setup. You can't. That is the ideal leadership story. In my 25 years in the Army, and now what, 10, 12 years in business, to where your boss tells you don't fuck it up and call me if you need help. That is the best setup that you can ever ask for and hope for, because that's 100% trust. And that means that you and your boss are on the same wavelength, and he trusts you to perform. That's doesn't get much better than that.
Now, I had a patrol sergeant that at the end of every roll call, he would say, all right, guys, you've got the tools, you've got the knowledge. Go out, be safe, call me if you need me, but try not to need me. And it was he was giving us permission to figure it out, but also letting us know that if we really needed him, he would be there to help guide or answer questions and things. And you're right, that is a great leadership platform if we're going to transition into business, to allow those people beneath you to make the decisions, but also the understanding that if it's beyond their realm of knowledge, that you're willing to help. So that is a recipe for success.
Yeah, I set myself up for the Trust Triad. So didn't even know that.
There
Subconsciously segueing myself here. So one of the things that when I talk about leadership, I talk about the Trust Triad, because as a leader, you got to have that trust, right? And the Trust Triad is you got to trust yourself that the decisions that you're making are the best decisions with the information you have. You have to be confident that, yes, I got it. This is the best I can do. I'm going to go forward and execute. Let's go. That's number one. Trust yourself. Number two is trust your team. You hired them and put them on that team for a reason, for their skills, for their ability. Let them do it. Trust them to perform the job you hired them to perform. And then third, and this is the most important, if you do those first two right, the third one comes naturally. Your team trusts you.
Indeed.
To perform, and they trust you that every decision that you make has their best interest in mind. So if you think about the Trust Triad, is trust yourself, trust your team, and your team trusts you.
Well said. That will be in the show notes out here for the business listeners. That's great, and I love receiving golden nuggets, as I like to call them, of information. Is being a small business owner myself, and still learning on a daily basis how to be a better business owner, and transitioning from lunchpreneur to an actual entrepreneur. It's baby steps, but nuggets like that helps you take 3 steps forward and stay in front. So I appreciate that nugget.
No problem. I mean, it's, the thing you get when you get to this point in life, and I'm reckoning you're pretty close to this point in life too, maybe not quite this far down the road, but you get a lot of life lessons. And, if you think of life lessons as, that bank account, you can't take it with you, right? You can't take that sack of gold. Somebody could bury it in your coffin with you, but guess what? If you're going to heaven or hell, wherever you end up, or somewhere in between, we can get into all kinds of weird stuff like that. It ain't going to leave the coffin, that sack of coins. Hey, Pharaohs, it's still here, I mean, so I look at life lessons the same way. And as I look back on life and think about all the things I screwed up, and didn't understand at this point or that point. And man, if I can just help somebody not have that same run into that same obstacle that I ran into, or show them how to overcome it really easily after I tried 4 or 5 times, that's where I'm always shooting. And that's why, I love doing this, so I can just share that. I mean, the other thing I do, I post a lot of little videos on social media, my team and I, and yeah, it's sharing life lessons, man. It's helping people. Tony Robbins says, giving is living.
Mm.
And if you take all that knowledge, you got all that knowledge in your head. I don't care whether you're 18 years old or 58 years old. You ain't sharing it with somebody. You're doing yourself and, quite frankly, I'll use the big word, humanity, a disservice.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. My dad always taught us to share the knowledge, pass it on, so that the world continues to be a better place. Because every generation loses something from the previous generation. So the more we can keep flowing downhill with the next generations, the slower the decline will be. I mean, if you think about men and women in our country 200 years ago, they had more skills, surviving skills,
Mm-hmm.
than what the general population today has, because we've forgotten a lot of that. So I agree with you. Pass it on, share it.
Oh yeah.
And that's honestly the basis behind this podcast, is to share the story so they themselves don't get lost and forgotten and buried with us. Um, my dad used to tell a lot of stories out of his business world, but never out of his military time. It's just something he didn't talk about. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that I didn't know about my dad that I didn't start learning until digging in after he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I did an interview with a 101-year-old lieutenant colonel out of the Army Air Corps a couple months ago.
Wow, that's cool.
It was an honor.
Yeah.
But his family reached out afterwards and thanked me, because they had never heard some of those stories that he was telling me, and now there's an archive of it, and
Mhm.
generations down the road will be able to hear some of these amazing stories of flying in the Second World War and during the Berlin airlift. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was amazing sitting in the room with that guy. He was
That's
sharp as a tack. You wouldn't have thought he was any older than maybe mid-70s.
mm.
Great guy.
My wife works in the senior industry, and yeah, she's had a handful of clients over the years that are 99, 100, and you'd never guess. Heck, some of them were still driving around into town, and
Yeah.
like, God. She's like, no, I mean, they got it all. I mean, mentally, physically, they're just, yeah. I don't know.
This guy bought a brand new Cadillac a couple months ago and drives to the links and plays 18 holes 3 times a week at 101.
Wow.
So, yeah, amazing guy. Amazing.
Man.
So another guest, episode 13, is with a guy named Matt Griffin, or also known as Griff.
Yeah.
And yeah, are you familiar with Matt Griffin?
Yeah, I know Griff.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So he told the story of an atomic sit-up, and prior to his interview, I'd never heard of an atomic sit-up, but I thought that was the funniest thing. In a, I mean, I guess technically it's hazing, but in what would be a more politically correct way of team building, I guess would be the more politically correct way of it.
There you go. Team building.
Yeah, team building. Yeah. Do you recall any shenanigans such as that? Whether it was from your enlisted time or from your commission time, in team building to help bring together the troops?
I mean, there's a couple of things, not quite like that, but because because Griff was in the regiment, the Ranger Regiment, and things were a little bit different down
So
the road in the Ranger Regiment, But I do remember a pseudo initiation that my first Special Forces team gave me. We were doing some operations and training off the coast of Maine in May, and we were a MAROPS / dive team. And one of the things we were up, if you're familiar with Maine, go all the way up to Holton, Maine. That's like the northern point on the coastline.
Okay.
And that's where we were. And we were working our way down south along the coastline. This is my first time really doing any kind of real training with the team, other than team room stuff. And guys said, "Hey, sir, just hop in the boat and, everything will be good." Cause it was, sunny May day. It was probably 70 degrees, 75 degrees, pretty nice. I mean, really nice, where if you're outside, you're rolling up your sleeves sort of thing.
Okay.
And BDUs and hop in the boat, and all the rest of the guys in their dry suits. I'm like, hey, Sergeant Johnson, JJ, should I get my dry suit? Oh, no, sir. No, you don't need any of that. You'll be all right. Sit right up here, sir. Sit right up here. We've always put the team leader up front, sir. So you can see where it's going, direct the boat. And, he's giving me all this line, this BS line. I'm buying it hook, line, and sinker. And Jerry, I hope you're listening, Jerry. Jerry gets back in the back of the boat, officially coxswain, he's driving the boat. He's the guy that's got his hand on the throttle for the motor. And sees, like I said, it's a bright sunny day, but we're coast of Maine in May. You're still getting, Arctic water, very, very cold water. And the seas were about 4 to 6. So swells, 4 to 6 feet swells. And we're in a Zodiac with a 35 horsepower motor. The Zodiac, I think it was 15, 16 feet long. And there's probably 4 of us, maybe 5 of us in the boat with some gear. And we take off, we hit the open water, we leave the bay, and we go out to the open water to kind of do our loop around and come back into the next spot. And the wind's picking up and the waves, and I'm just getting drenched, just getting covered. And Jerry is on the back of the boat laughing his ass off every time we hit a bump. I could hear him. Oh man, I was soaked. I was cold. And then he just goes, "Hey, sir, sorry. You probably should have worn your dry suit."
Was there not a uniform of the day briefing?
Yeah, no. I was the cherry in the ops, man. I mean, I was already out here in Colorado, and they were all back at Fort Devens still. So these guys had all been training together and doing things together for, at that point, some of them been together probably at least 2 years. So yeah, I was the newbie. Yeah, it was that was a good one. Like I said, it wasn't an official initiation, but yeah, it was an unofficial initiation that, yeah.
And I assume well received.
Oh yeah, I laugh. I mean, look at me, I'm laughing about it now. It's just because it was hilarious. He was like, "All right, you got me, Jerry. Goes around, comes around, dude."
It does. Yeah. So what was the come around?
Good question. I don't know. Probably nothing. I probably just blew it off and continued to move on. It was, I don't, one of the things that I try not to do is hold grudges. I don't care how bad you screw me over. Yeah, I may not call you up and ask you if you want to go get a beer, but I sure as hell ain't going to send you hate mail because it doesn't do me any good.
No.
Hate is an evil thing that will eat away at you. Being pissed off is an evil thing that'll eat away at you. And you know what? I look back on my life. I wonder how many opportunities I missed because I was pissed off at the time and I didn't see it.
That's fair. I definitely am guilty of that myself. And it's always better to forgive, forget, and move on.
Yeah.
But as humans, sometimes we just can't let go of certain things.
Well, I wish I could remember who said this. I'm about to Google this one of these days because it's such a great statement about your past. Your past can be your school or it can be your prison. And you think about that. It's so simple, but it's so true. How many people have you known in your life that their past, they're always going back to their past, and not in a good way, not I caught the game-winning touchdown, in high school, right, to win the state championship. Not,
Right?
Not the Al Bundy way, but the
I was going to bring that up.
but in that guy screwed me over, and you remember that time that guy, it's like you're one beer into the night and they go back to that story every time.
Every time. Yep.
That's the prison, as opposed to, well, that guy screwed you over. How'd that happen? Why do you believe that? And those sort of things, so that you can learn from it and move on, so you don't get screwed over again instead of focusing on. It's just completely different attitude.
I just wrote that down. And that may become a mantra for a while until something better replaces it. Yeah, that's another golden nugget.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's funny how something that simple, if you think about it, because we grew up, and I don't know how it was in, when you were a cop. I'm hoping it was a similar thing with the lessons learned and and reviewing actions and going through and, all right, you did this and did that. Okay. Why did you do this? How did you do that? And maybe you could do it differently or, same situation next time, sort of thing, to learn. Or you can just be pissed off about it every time it comes up and just, and
in my career, I had both.
Mm.
We always, on big ops, we would have the post-op, or if there was a critical scene afterwards, we would have a debrief. And then sometimes the sergeant would just show up on one of your calls and let you, especially if you were new, or if he and she was new, to learn how you handled your calls. And then they would pull you aside afterwards, like, okay, I let you finish, but what do you think the result would have been if you did this? Especially if you end up going hands-on with somebody and maybe spend an extra moment trying to de-escalate instead of escalating and going hands-on. So yeah, it was both. Some things really pissed me off, and it took a while to swallow that pride, and but I still learned from it and tried not to do the same thing over again. And but probably still did.
I used to use that same method though with my rugby boys. We do game film review here at the house, and I would stop and say, okay, what were you thinking at this point? Stop the film and ask the kid who's either has the ball or doing something, right? What were you thinking? Well, coach, I was thinking about this, and this. Okay, well, what else? What were some other possibilities, other options that you could have considered? And when you think about, when you go back through and watch film and analyze it that way, man, it is just so much, because they become lessons. They become true lessons for the person, because you're having them walk back through that moment in time and reflect back on it. And, usually we were within, 24, 48 hours. So still very fresh for those young men. But just a great way of them understanding how to, what options you have. And then the other thing that was great about it is they're right there in front of their whole team. The other 30 some odd players are sitting right there, and they get to explain in front of their entire team. Another great life lesson, right? Of how this was happening, what they were thinking about, and why they chose that decision. And for me, I thought, and I've gotten feedback from a couple of folks over the years that they really enjoyed that, because I would never tell them that was the wrong decision. Tell them, well, is there a better choice? Because sometimes, that's all you had in that moment. Remember back to our Trust Triad?
Right.
It's all the information you had at that moment, all the training you had at that moment. And you gotta you got to make a decision right now. Well, then looking back on it, it's like, oh yeah, well, if I'd looked to my left, I might have seen something else.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Fair. And that goes not just in sports, but also in law enforcement and military. There were,
mm,
you know, every officer that ends up having to use some sort of force or makes some decision, it's based on the knowledge and information and training they had at that time. They're judged sometimes as if they knew everything that happened afterwards or 24 hours prior, or some other information that they obviously didn't know at that moment, but should have or could have.
mhm.
So there was a lot of that Monday morning quarterbacking, but
Oh, yeah.
um, having game film, I would imagine, is a great tool to show that that athlete what they did, how they actually did it compared to what they thought they did, and how they thought they did it. I can see that being tremendous training tool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because our mind changes the picture,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, "No, I didn't do that, coach. No, 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 coach. I'll bet you 3 chocolate chip cookies or something." They would come
Yep.
up with. I was like, "Oh, really? Let's
Really?
get to that part of the film."
Well, I actually had another rugby player on. I think it was episode 8 or 9. Pierce Kokiji. Sorry, Pierce. I know I killed that. He was a Ranger guy.
Hmm.
He lives out in California and is a business mindset coach,
Hmm.
mind and body coach. Pretty cool guy. I never watched rugby till this past Olympics, and trying to compare what I was watching to American football,
No.
I was lost every match, and was having to try to Google as we watched, like, why are they only passing backwards? Why aren't they passing why are they kicking? So I learned a lot through Google University while
Oh
watching
yeah,
while watching the Olympics.
yeah, yeah. Sevens rugby can be addicting. I mean, because it's when they show like a tournament or a day of a tournament on TV, it's every 12 minutes is a match, like 2 minutes between them, and they are on time. I mean, it's amazing. And it's always one of those, because they host the World Series. So there's the World Series of Sevens that goes around the world, thus
Okay.
World Series, right? And the
Yes.
US location is in LA. It'll be in March. Plug for USA Rugby there. But it's it's like, if you're at the tournament, you're like, you're looking at your clock going, well, I'm kind of hungry, and I'd really like a beer. Let me just watch this match. And then you look, and it's like, oh, well, shoot, these two teams just started that. Let me watch this. And then next thing you know, you haven't left. And I remember years ago, like the first time I saw a sevens tournament on TV, it was the same thing. I'm downstairs, in the comfy chair watching, and it's like, let me just one more, just one more, just one more. Next thing you know, you've been sitting there for 3-4 hours, watched like 5 or 6 matches, and it's just goes bam, bam, bam. Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It's a very interesting sport. I didn't grow up around it, so I didn't know a whole lot about it. But what I did see, my wife and I we really enjoyed watching that in the Olympics. And that I heard about the haka
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, and started reading up on it and watching some of them on YouTube. That would be extremely terrifying back when, I guess, that was invented.
Yeah.
Opposing army watching this blood-curdling screams and a choreographed dance. Kids, if you haven't seen a haka, I believe it's HAKA or
Yes.
HAKKA. I can't
No,
remember.
one K.
Okay,
HAKA. Yep.
type that in YouTube and just put down your beer and watch. There's a bunch of awesome videos.
Yeah, my team, the high school team I used to coach, the Grizzlies, because the coach, the guy that I coached with that stood up the team and I took over for is a Kiwi, and his brother-in-law is Maori. We would do the haka. We had, quote, the authorization to do the haka, and we would do it only for playoffs, only like championship matches, semifinal championship match for the state championship sort of thing. The boys loved it. Got pictures of them, videos of them floating around, from like winning the state championship, and then they do the haka again, and just the intensity of it. It's really pretty cool for these, from 15 to 18-year-old young men doing the haka, and
that would be adrenaline pumping, team building. I can just.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. And the way going back to rugby in a larger sense, the way I always explain rugby to people that have no clue of it is it's a combination of soccer, football, and wrestling, all rolled into one and nonstop going. So you watch sevens, check out some 15s, because beginning of next month, the Six Nations, which is the European Championship between the European nations, will start, and that's 15 players aside.
Wow.
You want to talk about a strategic physical game that goes 40 minutes, 10-minute break, 40 minutes. And man, it's surprising it hadn't caught on more in America. And I'll give you one of the reasons, Otis theory, is that it is such a team sport. So there's no superstars in 15s rugby, because you can't just give it to, we all grew up in high school playing football, and if you had that star athlete at the high school level, guess what? He just put the other 10 players on his shoulders and just carried them, right?
Right. Yeah.
In rugby, it doesn't work, especially at 15s. In sevens, it does. I mean, in sevens, you can have, and the U.S. team has Carlin Isles, Perry Baker, and they're just phenomenal speedsters. And just like you would think like a wide receiver, you toss the ball out to a wide receiver out on the sideline, and poof, they're gone. That's what these guys are like. I mean, they're just so fast. It's almost comical to watch game film of them, and comical to see the defense, because they always misjudge the speed. You remember take the angle, right? Yes, coach, take the angle, right? Well, you take the angle for the speed you think they're going. Ooh, man. Not that I've ever tried to chase those fellows down, but wow.
Yeah, I'm not much of a runner. Never have been. And when I made sergeant, I would request dispatch to send the rookie out to chase the bad guys.
That's RHIP, right? Rank hath privileges.
Sometimes it did. Yeah. Well, Otis, tell us more about Tribe and Purpose. What is it that you're doing, and how can people find you?
Yeah. Well, our website is tribe-purpose.com. We work with business leaders, primarily small business leaders in the construction, oil and gas, even a little bit of hunting and fishing. I'm a hunter, fisher, industry, to help them understand what their purpose is. Because when you live life with purpose, when you have a purpose to guide you to what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, it's a heck of a lot more enjoyable, as opposed to living life in reaction mode. Mm-hmm. So living life, fulfilling your purpose, and then being part of a tribe, being part of something bigger than yourself, being part of an organization that wants you to succeed as much as they want to succeed, probably even a little bit more, probably even like a 60-40. That tribe, everybody in that tribe celebrates your success. When you get kicked in the jimmy, they're there with ideas and processes and plans to to help you get up and move forward, or you got this new maybe business idea or line of business you want to kick off. They're there as part of that. And that's what being part of that tribe is like, is, didn't experience this in the Army. I experienced it a couple of times in business. You ever get that feeling where you step out of your office and you just want to yell out, does anybody here give a shit whether this business is here tomorrow or not? Am I the only one doing anything? Well, when you're the business, when you're at the top of the business, you get that feeling a lot. And by being part of the tribe, you're right there with others who have who have or had or could possibly have that exact same feeling. So you get to share those thoughts and ideas, lessons learned. And, one of the great things I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years, really more than that, since I left the Army, is that business lessons transcend. There's some specific things depending on your industry, but generally it's about language. It's no different. Leadership is leadership. Leadership in the military is the same as leadership in the business world, same as being a leader in a police. It's all leadership. It doesn't matter the industry. And it's the same sort of thing. Those life lessons, comparisons, and understanding that you exchange in a tribe meeting that we hold and get together in these small groups are powerful, man. And it is a great way to keep the momentum going and not feel like you're the only one who gives a shit about the company.
Right.
So,
awesome.
Yeah. So it's tribe-purpose.com. I'll also tell you in the top right corner, it says get started. There's a button up there that says get started. And when you click that button, the page that comes up has 2 things you can sign up for. One of them is sign up for a little meeting with me, a little phone call with me. We talk about your purpose, do a vision analysis to see if you do have a clear vision for what you're pursuing. And then the other thing is sign up for our newsletter, Monday Moments. Monday Moments newsletter starts off with a Stoic quote. Guess what day of the week it comes out?
Monday.
Yes, that's because I am such a creative genius when I name things. So it's Monday Moments. Starts off with a Stoic quote, something I learned. So a nice little paragraph there. Planning thought for the week. Business idea I thought of or heard of, which I always have fun with because there's some crazy ones out there.
Yeah.
And then veteran opportunity. So I'm always checking out what's going on with VA or other areas that, that as a vet you can take advantage of to help you or get a discount, whatever. And then finally somebody I met. And I send that out every Monday morning. It's a great way to start your week off with a little thought-provoking Stoic quote. And again, going back to what I said earlier, sharing what I learned. And I just let you in on a little secret. I enjoy writing it. I've been doing it now 130 plus, 150.
Okay.
I don't remember now. Issues or editions or whatever you call it, weeklies. Not once have I said, shit, I got to write this thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Still have the passion for it.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I enjoy it because it's a little bit of storytelling in a different format. This is a great format. Doing those videos I mentioned earlier, another format, and sharing that newsletter, that little quick read newsletter is another one that I'm just sharing my lessons, my thoughts, so that others can have more success in their life.
Well, you mentioned you put those videos on the socials. Which socials and how can they find those?
Yeah, you can find them. So I'm on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn. Otis McGregor, pretty simple. I don't think there ain't a whole lot of Otises out there, and they're definitely my dad. I'm the third. Dad has a profile, but Dad's OW, and you don't do much with it. Dad's retired. So yeah, Otis McGregor, you can get them there. Also Tribe and Purpose. We had a page on LinkedIn, Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a YouTube channel also. So we do have a YouTube channel. And one other thing that we do, this is when I start to feel like, holy crap, I'm doing all that. No wonder I'm tired.
Yes, I feel you there.
I do a podcast with my son, Camden, and,
Cool.
yet another very creative name. It's the
Yes.
Cam and Otis Show. I tell you, man, I'm a creative genius when it comes to
I can
naming
see
things.
it. I can see it just oozing out of you.
Yeah, somebody please help me. Don't ask me to draw a picture or nothing either. So, yeah. So the Cam and Otis Show. So you can find us on all the podcast things, and we've got a YouTube channel for that too. If you have a longing desire to watch me talk, not just listen to me talk, but to watch me talk, then yeah, you can find us on the YouTube also.
All right. Any final nugget to share before we sign off?
I'll just share one other thing that we've got, a little freebie we've been doing for the last month through over December and the Christmas holidays. It's just a planning guide, decision guide is what we call it. And if you go to findyourpurpose.coach, it's a nice little one pager, help walk you through how to make a decision. Boom, 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 steps, fill it in. And then next week, we're going to put up our pursue your passion, kind of a passion. People say, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what my purpose is. Well, this is a little worksheet to help you do that. So those are both, you'll find those at findyourpurpose.coach. So we got 2 websites that you can connect with us on, tribe-purpose.com and then findyourpurpose.coach. Let me loosen my tongue up again because it got tied up. Findyourpurpose.coach.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 16 with Lieutenant Colonel Otis McGregor with Tribe and Purpose. Otis, thanks for coming on the show, sharing some of your business nuggets, as well as your military stories. And I, for one, will be signing up for the Monday newsletter so that I can take charge of my purpose in life. So thanks again, buddy, for coming on. I appreciate you spending the afternoon with me. And folks, look for Otis in all of the links that will be down here, right there. Check him out and hit him up. And until then, be safe and stay well.
Appreciate it, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely.